Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's guest for the Women in Leadership series is Kiran Bajar from London. She is the Chief of Staff at Hunters and Unicorns. Kiran is also a member of Chief, which is a private network for powerful women in leadership. She is a mentor at King's College London and has a passion for enhancing employee engagement, especially through diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's go and talk to Kiran. Hi, Kiran. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Amra. How are you?
I'm good too. Thank you for being here. So, Kiran, we're going to start out by talking about Hunters and Unicorns. You work there as the Chief of Staff. And could you tell us about Hunters and Unicorns and what you do there?
Absolutely. So there are three branches of the Hunters and Unicorns kind of business. The first is recruitment. So Hunters and Unicorns is a leading recruitment firm specializing in high growth SaaS sales companies. We service the Americas and also the EMEA markets. We've successfully placed hundreds of top tier executives in some of the world's most successful companies, such as MongoDB, Zscaler, as well as Snowflake. So that's the recruitment arm of Hunters and Unicorns.
Right.
We then have the podcast. So it's a highly acclaimed podcast, which has garnered over 1 million downloads globally. It showcases thought leaders within the tech SaaS space. And the third arm of Hunters and Unicorns is the advisory arm. So we provide fractional advisory services through VCs to enhance the potential of an exit event. So we've got recruitment, podcast, and advisory. Right. And as you mentioned, my role is the Chief of Staff. So essentially, Amra, I sit across all three branches and I oversee legal, compliance, and I also work very closely with the two founders to support with their day-to-day running of the business as well.
You have a legal background as well. So how did your background in law shape your approach to leadership and strategy within the tech space?
It's a really good question. Firstly, my background in law has provided me with a lens of rationale, logic, a very grounded perspective, objectivity in everything. So when I apply that to, let's say, the tech space, which is an incredibly dynamic and agile space, it really allows me to look at the commercial goals of an organization. I'm able to marry that up with the strategy in terms of how those goals can be achieved. And then I'm able to use my legal background to think of the best, most methodical, structured, logical way to achieve that. So having a legal background in the tech space really helps with driving strategic objectives using structured and objective methodology. Right. And when I apply that to leadership as well, it all kind of goes hand in hand, because once again, what is leadership? Leadership is about, in my opinion, it's about influencing with integrity in order to achieve the strategic goals. So a legal background allows you to look at what you can do, what you can't do, how you can think outside the box, but all the while ensuring that things are done properly to a high standard and following a process. So leadership, tech, and law, I think I found a nice way of marrying them all up.
Well, very interesting.
I think so anyway.
So you're also a member of Chief, which is a private network for powerful women in leadership. So that makes you a part of a very dynamic community. Can you share an instance where networking and collaboration within Chief led to a significant breakthrough or initiative?
Absolutely. I mean, there's more than one example to choose from. I mean, firstly, if we look at Chief, you're looking at a community of, exceptional women, exceptional in their own fields, but also they've got a strong sense of supporting other women. So as a network, it's phenomenal. And there is a lot, many initiatives of cross collaboration and discussions, and you're invited to lots of panel events, and at all of these junctures, you've got the opportunity to learn and to absorb information. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many individuals I've spoken to that are incredibly inspirational to me. And one of the many things that I've taken away from the numerous discussions at Chief has been the importance of cross collaboration. And at Hunters and Unicorns, we're about influencing in the SaaS, high growth tech space. And so what I sort of took away from a particular panel discussion at Chief was, how can you use your network in order to grow the number of verticals you have, whilst maintaining your own professional integrity and ensuring that you can achieve your own commercial objectives.
Right.
And so what we've done at Hunters and Unicorns is we have launched the Strategic Partner Advisor, which essentially means that we partner with thought leaders and leaders within the SaaS tech space to really maximize our network of influence. And so by having these extra verticals in order, as a means of doing this, as a vehicle of doing this, that was taken directly from my conversations at Chief. But it wasn't just that, Amra. Our actual first strategic advisor also came from Chief, a phenomenal woman called Susan Whitmore, who is a Chief member, but also my own mentor as well. So I've got just, I could speak about an hour about how wonderful this woman is. And she was our first strategic advisor to join this kind of affiliate program. So not only did the seed, the idea really stem from Chief, but actually our first strategic partner came directly from Chief as well.
Amazing. Good to know. As if you weren't doing enough, you're also a mentor at King's College London.
Yeah.
And you guide the next generation through that. So what key leadership qualities do you emphasize while mentoring young individuals, and how do you encourage them to overcome gender-related challenges?
Yeah. Great question. It's funny, actually, because I was a student at King's College London. So when I went back as a mentor, I don't know who was more surprised, sort of me or them, because I was I was somewhat rebellious 20 years ago. So I think a strong leader is one that is multifaceted and has a plethora of leadership skills behind them. But I would argue that the most important is perhaps relatability. And for me, relatability is essentially balancing confidence with humility, which I think is a really important leadership trait, because whilst you want to instill strength and confidence in your team, you also need to show that you have challenges and you're human, and sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, and I think that's really important for your team or anyone that you manage to see that. And so by being a mentor, that's also something that I'm trying to instill in the next generation, that actually to be a strong leader, you've got to be vulnerable at times, because
Absolutely.
relatability is really integral to a strong leader. We then asked about how do I encourage them to overcome gender-related issues?
Yes, gender-related challenges, I said.
Gender-related challenges. So I think as they enter the workforce, as many of them are doing so, it's about kind of driving awareness about things such as our gender-neutral interview processes being implemented, and are they, when they join the workforce, are they being provided with training on unconscious bias? Is there a clear policy on discrimination? And whether they are joining a process or whether down the line they're then leading these processes, how is gender equity at the forefront of their mindset? And how can they really propel that agenda forward is something that they should be thinking about now. And so having these conversations is crucial.
So can you tell me, your role as Chief of Staff underscores your involvement in shaping organizational culture. How can companies create an inclusive environment that enables women to thrive in leadership positions?
Okay, great question. There are, we could be talking, I think, Amra, for a long time about what organizations can do, because there are so many, and a lot of it depends on the size and other factors. But I think there are some key points that all organizations can adopt, regardless of their sector focus or size or other sort of industry parameters. I think creating a safe space for all of their employees to be able to discuss career progression is very, very important. I think there are many women who have aspirations for leadership, but because of the lack of dialogue, that jump to leadership just seems almost unachievable and unobtainable. So having a space whereby individuals can come forward to their leadership and say, look, this is where I want to go, and let's can we please create a roadmap to help me get there, so I know exactly what I need to do, and then you can hold me accountable, and I can hold you accountable if there are things that you need to be doing to support me on this. And it's about that mutual consensus and having that roadmap, which is really important. But before we get there, we've got to have a safe space where these conversations can take place. So I think that would be the first point. The second is, I think we need to track and measure key data around factors such as hiring, pay rises, promotions, because it's all very well saying, oh, well, we've hired, 50% of our new hires have been female. Okay, but fast forward 2 years, how many of those have been promoted in comparison to the male counterparts? How many of those have had pay rises in comparison to the male counterparts? And in 5 years from now, how many of them are on track to leadership versus their male counterparts? So it's looking at data holistically. And what's, the point of data is to be able to glean relevant information. There's no point me having a book of statistics to be able to read off. What do those stats mean? So I think a lot of organizations are kind of data centric, but they're light on information.
Right.
And so I think organizations need to be more mindful in terms of, okay, well, how does this data inform us, and what can we be doing to drive the agenda forward, and that agenda being one of gender equity.
Right.
The third point I would say is quite a general one, but it is really for organizations to be more transparent. Disclose what's working well, disclose what isn't, because I think you're going to get a lot more employee engagement and buy-in when you bring your employees on the journey with you.
Right, obviously. Yes.
And I think the last thing I would say is, the importance of allies. So allies within an organization, they're there to share their ideas, for you to listen to them, and vice versa, where new initiatives can be discussed and launched, but most importantly, tracked as well as implemented. So again, in 6 months, what do the results show? What's working? What's not? So I think really propelling forward a conversation around allyship is something that organizations can do, and it will really make a positive impact on tackling the topic of gender equity.
When you say that, not enough women are being promoted, right? They're on the track to being promoted, but then, and they want to, and they're working for it, but then they don't get promoted like men do, or not as many women get promoted as men. So why do you think that is? I mean, is it because, things get really tough and women just give up, or is it, they don't have the same ambitions as men, or what is it? What do you think is the reason?
Well, I read a paper recently, and it said that there are more women leaving full-time employment and setting up their own businesses than ever before. I don't know if that's just in the UK. To be honest with you, I can't remember if it was kind of which demographic that was focusing on, but it is certainly the case within the UK. And I don't think it's because women are giving up. I think, to be self-employed, you've got to work incredibly hard.
Of course.
But I think a lot of women are they're getting frustrated because they're not seeing change happening quickly enough. And that's by no means because they're impatient. It's because, we're still having conversations about why aren't there enough women in leadership. I mean, we've been having this conversation for so long. So I think women are actually taking matters in their own hands and feeling a lot more empowered, which is fantastic. But then it also means that if these really, if competent, capable individuals are leaving organizations, then they're no longer able to progress up. So it's a really interesting kind of conundrum. I think until we tangibly see, more women at the within the C-suite, more senior women at the top table, until we see that, until we have that representation, I think we're going to continue to see women leaving full-time employment and forging their own paths and making things happen for themselves. I do think there is changes happening, but unfortunately, I don't think it's happening at the rate that it should be, or the rate that we deserve it to be. I think some organizations are, Amra, some are really great, and they've got gender neutral hiring processes and strong training on unconscious bias, and just as many women are being promoted than men. But unfortunately, there's not enough of those companies. And I think in the companies where it is still, let's be honest, the top table is still very kind of male, pale and stale, as it were. I think in those organizations, there is still a fear that women might, take a career break and have a baby, and that's going to kind of implement in a negative way their ability to come back and work hard, which of course is absolute nonsense. I mean, I'm a working mother, I have 2 children myself, and at no point do I feel that a man can do my job better than me. If anything, I think we have been able to multitask and complete kind of a greater number of objectives, and we always have been, because we've had no choice. So we've had the practice of doing that for a lot longer. So I suppose I'd like the focus really to be more on the positive, which is that positive change can be made. Gender equity can be achieved, but we've got to be honest, transparent, and we've got to look at the data and the metrics in order for that to move forward.
So thank you so much for being here, Kiran. And I'll definitely be getting in touch with you again to come back and talk to us about more of this.
Thank you so much, Amra, for having me. It's always lovely to speak with you, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked this video or learned something from it, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.